Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's dive. Boy, where do I even begin with this one? I was first introduced to this mystery about 4 years ago on one of my top 5 channels ever named Chas. He has since gone dormant and hasn't posted for some 2 odd years, which still brings a tear to the eye. But we keep him alive with every video because he's the guy that introduced me to the music you're listening to right now, but I'm yapping, so let's get back to the mystery. He also left us a very peculiar entry in his catalog of videos that stands out above a lot of his other uploads. The video was entitled Pyramid in the Everglades. The story goes that a young man was traveling via kayak into the Florida Everglades in the 1990s. He was alone, 18 years old, and excited to discover the world. But quickly, things fall apart. He's chased by unseen beasts through the mangroves, and his kayak is chewed loose by one of the creatures. While wandering helplessly, hoping to find civilization, he steps into a field and is met by a large ancient pyramid. This is utterly baffling because according to the existing historical understanding, no advanced civilization existed in this region, so how could a pyramid be here? Before learning much more though, he begins hearing screaming from inside the pyramid. He understandably decides to run away, firing shots at what he thinks he sees chasing him. The police then find him several hours later, starving and dehydrated, but alive. No one believes his story, even his parents, and everything he witnessed is written off as the delusions of a kid who got lost and dehydrated. Interestingly though, the creatures he noticed came before the dehydration. For that and other reasons, this user left a convincing enough story for me to look into a little bit deeper. And as it turns out, what he's talking about may actually exist. Rumors of strange structures have existed for decades from ranchers and other landowners deep in the Everglades, but nothing was ever very substantial. At least not until 2014, when a series of documents were accidentally uncovered. At the Philip and Pamela Frost Museum of Science in Florida, while undergoing a move into their new building, some archivists grabbed a file from what is known as the Curious Vault. No kidding, that's what it's called. It's the museum's collection of their strangest and most wild documents and items that are almost completely unseen by the public. And as it turns out, the file that the archivist grabbed was upside down and 2 letters fell out. The first was from a man named Joseph Manson Valentine, who was a preeminent explorer in his time. He graduated from Yale both undergraduate and graduate in zoology, and then he began traveling the globe and uncovered some truly fantastic things, including the Bimini Road, which some believe to be related to Atlantis. The other letter that fell out was from a man named L. Frank Hudson. And from the details we can get at, it seems that together the two partook in an expedition deep into the unknown of the Everglades, which if you don't know is America's version of the jungles of Vietnam. It's a both beautiful and deadly place to get trapped in. And on this trip, they documented their discovery of, you guessed it, none other than a pyramid of unbelievable quality. Much like the Mayans, it had staircases climbing the sides and gorgeous architecture. They realized though how impossible this was, as the people that lived in the region were nomadic and incapable of such advanced works. And so they were left to question what they had found and discover what they could. And allegedly attached to one of the letters is a drawing of a beautifully and intricately carved blade that, unfortunately for the sake of proof, has never surfaced. My jaw dropped reading this. I live in Florida part-time, and although pretty far, the Glades are just a road trip away. So I sought out to get my hands on these letters from the museum and the maps they are rumored to include, and so I emailed and then called and then emailed and then called some more, and eventually I got in contact with somebody, but I got a little bit of weird response from this chick. She said both we know it exists, but we don't know where it is, so it's gonna take her a while to find it, meaning maybe there's a grand cover-up happening, you guys, but also it could just take some time, so I'm gonna make an update video about this mystery. But until that time, keep it in the back of your mind, you guys, because I'm making the connections and we're gonna see what happens with that. And obviously, if we do get the maps, we're gonna have to live stream it. The next mystery on this list is arguably as obscure and happens exactly on the other side of Earth. In Akita, Japan, there is a dark and bizarre issue that began to gain traction online in 2020. It started with a single phone call to 119, that's the Japanese number for the fire department, except when they received these calls, all the fire department could hear was pink noise, and pink noise is often considered a soothing sound. It's one of the things people play to fall asleep, and obviously this is very odd because what you're expecting to hear is a person. Although I should note, there is one strange instance of what sounded like clothes being rustled in the background, but that's an outlier. In all the cases though, the operator would try and communicate with the person on the other end, but the call would quickly drop off. And upon redialing the strange number, the operator was met by nothing but the ringing of the phone. It's Japanese protocol in situations like these to go and check out the area under the assumption that something is wrong. And so the fire department drove over to the house only to find that the doors and windows were sealed and that it had been abandoned, and by the looks of it, for quite some time. Creeped out but nonetheless curious, the firemen returned to base. This had been a rare but frequent enough issue in Akita over the years that new recruits were trained on what to do in these scenarios. But in 2020 something changed. It went from 1 or 2 of these creepy calls a year to 9 in just a few months. This sparked some major concerns, which is when the mystery made its way online and how we even know about it today. There are a host of articles from a variety of different Japanese websites, so we can corroborate the story. We know that these calls are occurring. But even more interesting might be that each of these articles then goes on to reference an outlier in this situation. And it's this outlier that left the authorities very suspicious of the true nature of these calls and made them even more creeped out every time they received one, leading many to believe that perhaps a demonic element is at play. 6 years before the latest calls began in 2020, there was another one. Near midnight on May 16, 2016, a caller rang the 119 emergency number from a cottage outside a villa in the Hokkaido Mountains. This was a long journey, so when the feds arrived, they were rather annoyed at first to find that the villa was entirely abandoned. The area was creepy, albeit neat, as the previous tenants had locked up the windows and doors, leaving the authorities to have to forcefully enter the premises. And when doing so, their frustration and annoyance turned into confusion and then an overwhelming sense of creepiness, as the phone that had allegedly dialed them was hanging off the hook, slightly swinging as they entered. This was really bizarre, especially remembering that the estate was locked up and abandoned, but even more so knowing the history of the Hokkaido Mountain region. In the same general area of the villa, the largest mountain climbing disaster in history had occurred. In 1906, a group of soldiers training for mountain expeditions to prepare for battle with Imperial Russia were suddenly caught in a blizzard, with the weather dropping as low as -41 degrees. 199 of the 210 men died that day. The remaining 11 were found by sheer luck. Since then, there have been over a century's worth of stories told about the demonic elements at play in the region, leaving many to think that this story may just be another in a long line of incidences related to the men. But that doesn't explain the other calls. Well, you're right, but the reasoning for those is the same. On the one hand, there are a group of people who believe it's something demonic, and another group who believe it has to do with some faulty phone lines or an elaborate hoax staged by some teenagers. Both sides have their pluses and minuses, but I'd like to know what you think it is, so comment down below. You know, with any change of the guard, some hiccups are to be expected. This is historically true in America. With each president, there is always some goof. But recently, something very odd happened on the White House YouTube channel, where some intriguing info was left in a video, but not exactly where you'd expect. The video at first is just a speech between Trump and Netanyahu to the public, but as user Accomplished Rift tells us in his dissertation on the Internet Mysteries subreddit, when you start reading the captions, you notice something isn't quite right. The speech that's occurring is not the same as the captions on screen.
We're gonna have a lot of people signing up very quickly. Unfortunately, for 4 years, nobody signed up. Nobody did anything for 4 years except in the negative.
How this could be possible may not make sense at first, but it's worth noting that YouTube has a feature where you can input your own captions track instead of just doing automatic captions, so in theory I could be playing anything in the captions right now. And in this track, what is ostensibly playing is a covert conversation for just a few employees describing the new process for sensitivity marking on emails and other messages leaving the government. Basically, they're saying that if Jim Bob sends an email to Joe Mama and Joe Mama is outside the government, then the email service is going to tell you that this person is not in the government and rate how sensitive the info is. Seems pretty standard to me. Albeit ironic though that this is a caption track that made it out. Quite literally a government leak about how to avoid government leaks. But that's what's so interesting about this. Some users researched into the White House and other government YouTube channels and found nothing else like this, and the fact that caption tracks must be manually added, meaning someone chose this track and somehow didn't think to review it, is just odd. It has left some to wonder if this was intentional and if whoever uploaded the track is trying to get us to realize something, and I am one of those people. And since you're here, you might be as well, so I've attached a link to the entire transcript below, and I think it's really worth a read. But it really does just seem like a super bland government meeting, but at the same time, for the aforementioned reasons and the video it's beneath, I have a healthy suspicion, and anything from the government can and should be read with a lens of suspicion, so let me know what you think below. This next one is actually a Scoop channel mystery. If you follow my uploads, you may know that a little over a month ago, I made a video about the X7 online cult. Essentially, it's a channel that pretends to post religious content and profits off of people's depression. Sad, I agree. Well, in there was this weird phenomenon where all of the X7's accounts were filled with thousands of bots in the comments saying the same thing over and over. And about a week after I released the video, I started noticing more comments than usual. I typically read all the comments I get from you guys and try to respond to them all, but sometimes I just don't get to it before they are lost in the ether. But in that video's case, when I went to check the comments, I realized they're the same bots from the X7 channel. And boy, this is weird. If you go and read the comments on my video, there are well over 100 of them saying a variation of the same thing. In fact, it got to the point that YouTube clearly took some down. But each of the comments gives the bag away because they're all about how wrong and stupid I am and how miraculous the X7 channel has been for them. Some of these comments are just a few sentences, while others are paragraphs, and boy, oh boy, some are full-fledged essays at this point. This was really weird to me because invading my channel only got me more video growth, but the bot spam legit hasn't stopped even though it's been over a month. Every day I wake up to comments and at least one of them is a new bot commenting on that video. And even weirder, the X7 channel owner and the guy running the scam commented on my video about him from his main channel account, and then clearly set his own bot to work because he's responded dozens of times to these nearly identical comments. It's such a bizarre situation, and what's interesting is we can statistically prove that they are bots and not watching the video because they've been dragging my retention numbers down. When I first uploaded the video, and for the first week, my average retention was some 8 minutes and 50 odd seconds that the average viewer stayed and watched, which is really great. But now it's something like 727, which isn't bad by any stretch, but means it's just proof that these are bots because they're not staying for the video, they're just clicking, commenting, and leaving. Such a weird situation, and it's even stranger because you could go to that video right now and see for yourself that this dude is proving me totally correct as he spawns my channel with his bots. Also, this is for UX7 because I'm sure you're gonna watch this. If you're trying to convince people that you're not a scam and that these are all real people, maybe have the bot comments show up on other videos of mine as well, not just the one about you. Super goofy, but let me know what you think down below. The Minute Hour was a popular YouTube channel boasting over 190,000 subscribers and countless videos. His whole style of content was the schizo animations dubbed with some wildly terrifying audio. In fact, one of his posts is an extended interview with a child murderer ice cream man who's imprisoned on the moon and is interviewing for his parole basically via Zoom. And this thing goes into vivid detail about his crimes and really immerses you in the story. It's well made, but genuinely freaky. But what's unique about the Minute Hour, beyond his content and why he's here in an Internet Mysteries video, is because he doesn't exist anymore. Ronin777 over on the Internet Mysteries subreddit was the first to bring this to my attention. I'll read a bit of his post for context. The Minute Hour, a popular YouTuber known for audio-based skits and animations, has seemingly had a major psychotic episode. He has deleted all of his videos, leaving only a strange cryptic message. Important details below. Now this is weird. To go and delete your massive YouTube channel, which is likely your main source of income, as well as your other social media accounts and your Patreon, is strange business. Moreover, Ronin mentions an important detail that this wasn't all of a sudden. It was a pattern of weird and out of character behavior for weeks that led up to the deletion. Also, I went to some other sources and was able to get the Minute Hour's exact quote about why he was deleting his channel. And he left his community on this note: I have started communicating with very powerful people who have instructed me what to do. I have a plan. Many were worried about this, both at the time and even still, as it seemed likely the Minute Hour may have endured a clean break with reality. It also gets weirder because he posted later that, and I quote, everything is fine, and then goes on to discuss how he has zero intention to harm himself and that this is the best he's ever felt. Which, when combined with the sorts of things he used to post, then the deletion, then the reference to powerful people, and now him clearly trying to convince us, or more possibly himself, that he has no self-harm plans, this is weird. But just when we thought things couldn't get any stranger, they do. The Minute Hour completely rebranded his channel from The Minute Hour to Gamer Church. And what is Gamer Church? I couldn't tell ya. And if you go to his bio, you see a link to the new Gamer Church website. First, I should say though that it's worth noting he made a Google Drive you can request access to download all of his old content. Super odd, but since I didn't know who he was before, it certainly gave some helpful insights. But I'm yapping. Heading over to the Gamer Church website, we are met with the picturesque 1990s site with old internet style everything. And entering the gates, we are met with a virtual playground with a few menu options at the top. We have the home page, the game library, a testimony section, and a services tab. All of them are equally weird. The home tab tries to introduce us to what this whole thing is, and then immediately goes on a rant about how the world was created 700 trillion lives ago. So we basically learn nothing from that. The game library is really cool and has a ton of great old video game titles that alleges you can stream from online, but you actually can't. Which is one of the strangest things to me about it, because it's like, why would you build a giant graveyard of games that everyone's forgotten about just to have them not work? It's a complete fugazi. And the testimony section is filled with more rants, seemingly from the same person or different accounts, kind of like someone talking to himself but pretending to be other people. And the services tab has some of what they call sermons, which are rants from seemingly deranged folks who are saying complete rambling nonsense.
Welcome, gamers. Welcome, gamers of all shapes, colors, and patterns. Welcome to Gamer Church. Why is life? Why is life? What is the point? What is the reason? Why? Why are we here?
Thus, in other words, this site is completely useless to us and only gives us more questions, way more questions in fact. Like, is this really what a YouTuber with 190,000 plus subscribers and over a decade of work on the platform deleted everything for? A fake retro video game website? Or is it something else going on? At this point, we have to believe something else is going on, either mentally, with these strange, essentially schizophrenic behavior patterns, or taking a possibly sadder approach, maybe he did really meet some powerful people in his own words, and he's been taken advantage of. Who knows? With that said, you guys make sure to let me know what you think about the Minute Hour and Gamer Church down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to comment below, Steven, the beans are in the sausage. So everyone else gets really confused. I'm not even sure what that means either. And also, if you enjoyed, make sure to join the Discord down below and the Instagram. And without further ado, thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.